So we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is a University Hospital sponsored class. Welcome, welcome. As you may know, I know some of you have been here before, some of you are brand new, so welcome to everybody. These classes are free and open to the public, so we really have a mix and a variety of folks here today. And we're here doing cooking classes now twice a month and other special events throughout the year, and we also do some store tours on Wednesdays as well. And all the classes we're doing, all of these cooking classes are really meant to be showing you recipes that are budget-friendly, that are affordable and accessible. We're shopping for everything right here at Dave's. So we're not getting anything else from another location. We're really showing exactly what kind of things you can do with the ingredients you have right here. And the way we do this, I'll introduce our topic in a minute, but all of our classes are meant to be really interactive and casual. We're really trying to show you recipes and have not only us sharing tips and tricks with you, but also we want you to share resources and ideas with each other. So please we want you to feel free and welcome to do that. And you can also ask questions throughout. That's what these are for too. I will say for a moment that the bathrooms are located just right out here to the right, in case anyone needs that. And regardless of the topic, today you're here to talk about heart-healthy recipes and heart-healthy eating. What is a heart-healthy recipe? What does a heart-healthy shopping cart look like? What does a heart-healthy menu for a week look like for myself and my family? Those are the kinds of things we're going to be talking about today. Because February is American Heart Month, so you're seeing a lot of that, a lot of those promotions and things in the grocery store too. And with these classes, we really want to encourage you to think like a chef at home, which is why we got someone like Chef Tony right here. So we really want you to think, we're trying to really share with you what are some tips and tricks that chefs use to make the most of fresh ingredients, to make the most of their shopping budget, and really to get more and more fresh and healthy food into your diet in ways that feel familiar and are flavorful and good. We want you to enjoy your food. It's really important. So my name is Laura Silver. I'm a registered dietitian here with Sodexo at University Hospitals. And when I'm not here doing classes like these, then I'm across the street, usually at the Women and Children's Center. Like I said, this is a heart-healthy class. So we're talking about heart-healthy food today. Heart-healthy can mean a lot of different things. When you see it out in commercials or when you see heart-healthy mentioned somewhere, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean things like reducing your added sodium intake and added salt. It can mean reducing added sugar. It can mean lowering the cholesterol and the saturated fat in your diet. But it can also be about adding the good stuff in. And that's the stuff I like to talk about. And that's the stuff we like to focus on here. Because no one actually likes to talk a whole lot about all the things they can't have or they shouldn't have or what they need to cut out and have less of. It's, I think, a lot more encouraging and interesting, and it's more likely to encourage you to, it can really help you to change habits over the long term, to think about what are the good things I can be adding more of. And gradually, there's a strategy. The more you add in some of the good stuff, the more you can crowd out the things that are less healthy, that you want to have less and less of. So that's a strategy that we really try to show you here today. Also, a lot of the ingredients that you see in our menu, we're really emphasizing fresh ingredients whenever we can. And there's a reason for that. So we're using lots of whole vegetables and fruits and we'll be talking about whole grains and ingredients that are more closer on the spectrum to whole foods, the way they more originally grow, the closer to nature, the closer to how they originally grow. And that's because those kinds of ingredients are going to naturally have less occurring sodium. That's naturally going to be true. Anything that's coming from a package or a box or a jar or a can has undergone, they've done some kind of processing to that, and so it might have some amount of added salt or added sugar. So the more that we can, and we'll talk more about that, but the more that we can use the fresh stuff and make the most of that, the more it's naturally going to be heart healthy, because it'll be naturally lower in that naturally occurring sodium. What else? I want to say too that we will be sharing some tips when it comes to food safety, just some basic tips for preparing food safely at home, and specific ingredients and how long you can safely store something once it's prepared. So feel free to be asking questions about that, about those kinds of things too. That's the kind of resources we want you to walk away with from these classes too, okay? And I think I introduced myself before, so I'm a dietitian. I really get to focus on community nutrition programs. So when you don't see me here, I'm usually across the street at the Women and Children's Center. Welcome. And then I also do some other community nutrition programs at the Otis Moss Junior Health Center as well. So now I will turn it over. Let's talk about what we're actually going to be eating and looking at today with our Chef Tony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Verona. I'm the Culinary Director for University Hospitals Health System. I've been with UH for about 12 years and proud to be here and proud to be sharing some chef techniques with you guys today. So somebody tell me what their favorite food is. Anybody? What? Pasta? Okay. Pizza. So I encourage everybody, after you learn today, one of my favorite foods is chili. I love beef chili, right, with all that fat and all that kind of stuff, putting cheese and all this kind of stuff on it. I encourage everybody to leave today, use the techniques, and try to make your favorite dish with a little less salt, a little less fat, maybe a little less carbohydrates. And we're going to teach you these techniques today, right? We're going to be teaching you some chefy techniques that hopefully you'll be able to take home, go back to your house, and apply those to your everyday cooking. We're also going to learn about food safety, because we got raw turkey today. We're going to learn about how to handle that properly, how to make sure we don't have some cross-contamination, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. We're going to talk about properly storing your foods. A lot of people have some challenges with the week out. They get home from work, there's some, we got to prep, we got to do all this kind of stuff to get ready for dinner. I'm going to give you some techniques that are going to help you if you do a few things on a Sunday night or whenever your day off is, that are going to help you throughout the whole week, okay? We're going to talk about proper cooking methods and how we stage ingredients, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what staging means. So I really want you to think like a chef. So before we start any presentation, we're going to be using some terms that may not be familiar with you. So anybody know what mince is? We're going to mince some onions, right? What about, what's that? Finely diced. You should be up here. Excellent job. We're going to talk about sautéing. Everybody knows sautéing, but what's the French word? It means to jump. So whenever you put something in the pan and you hear that sizzling, that's what the French call sautéing. So it means to jump. If you hear nothing, then your pan's not hot enough. So I actually had the flame on here a little bit, and I'm getting this pan a little bit hot. We're going to learn about mise en place. Mise en place is another French term which everything has its proper place. Everything has its proper place. Every place has its proper thing. I don't know if you can see this stuff up here. I prepped up everything ahead of time. Not everything, but I'm going to show you how to chop some vegetables here. But I got everything ready to go. Because the last thing you want to do is have something that's going to be lagging behind when you're making a chili. You don't want to be running and all of a sudden it's burning. You want everything ready to rock and roll, right? We're going to talk about using spices and herbs to replace it with salt. So that's what we're talking about today. We want to reduce our sodium levels. So I encourage you, when you're done tasting this chili, you let me know how it is. Just because I'm a chef doesn't mean I make everything right, but I think you'll like it, and no sodium at all.
Yeah, actually.
Maybe a little bit, very low. The one thing I will mention, that when you buy canned beans, which I used today, these weren't dried. I do have canned tomatoes as well. There are some things that you can buy canned that are perfectly fine. Just watch the sodium in it, because as Laura mentioned earlier, a lot of canned things can have higher sodium. So just turn it around, look in the back. And Laura, what's a good amount of milligrams of sodium per?
So when you're looking so number one, the best is no salt added or unsalted. Sometimes you can find that, and sometimes you can find that at the same price point as the other varieties. So that's the best. Then from there, the next best would be something like low sodium. And if you flip it on the back, that term low sodium is a regulated term. It's illegal for them to say that something's low sodium if it's not really low sodium. And what they mean by low sodium is it's got to be 140 milligrams or less than that per serving. You may notice when you look at the numbers of milligrams on a food label, but you also see percentages. If you look at I should have just a giant poster of a food label, right? So you see the number of milligrams. You also see the percentages. You can use either of those. If you prefer to look at the percentages, sometimes I think that's a little easier to manage. You're looking for about 5%, 5 to 8%, something like that. And again, that's talking about how much sodium is in this food I'm about to eat per serving. So if there's 3 servings of this soup in a can and I have the whole can in one sitting, I'm not having that amount of sodium times 1, I'm having it times 3 because there's 3 servings in there for me. That's where it can get tricky. Yeah.
So I took out some ground turkey. I took it out of the package. I didn't touch it. Earlier I touched it with my hands, so I washed my hands, right? You always want to make sure. The one thing I forgot to mention in the terms was cross-contamination, right? So I have a cutting board up here. If I put raw turkey on here, right, and then I make the chili and everything, and then I go make a lettuce salad for you guys without cleaning and sanitizing the cutting board, I mean, everybody knows that's bad news, right? You know, this turkey is perfectly fine, but you probably don't want to eat it raw, right? A lot of chicken, turkey has salmonella naturally in it, right? So you always got to make sure you cook turkey, any ground meat particularly, to 165 degrees, especially turkey and any poultry, okay? So I have some hot oil that I put in there, and as I'm cooking, I'm going to chop and talk at the same time. So you might have some sizzling and some, I'm just going to talk over that. If you have a hard time hearing me, let me know, okay? One thing I will mention, this says raw turkey on it. I want to put that in a bowl, right? Because as this is cooking, it's still raw. But once it's cooked, I want to start switching my utensils, right? Because you don't want to put it back in there to have raw turkey. So right now it's okay. I'm going to put that into a bowl. Now we're going to talk about the ingredients that we're using today. So, fresh vegetables, okay? Hopefully you guys can see that. Some onions, and I pre-washed everything. I peeled the carrot. I washed the peppers. We have vegetable stock, canned beans, pinto and white, northern beans, some canned diced tomatoes, some tomato paste, and I'm going to talk about all this. The spice blend that you guys are going to make here in a little bit. I made my own spice blend. You got to watch it, because the reason I make my own is because usually the ones you buy are full of sodium, okay? Garlic, this is one technique I made it ahead of time, but everybody, you got to peel the garlic, take all the skin off. Who wants to mess with that? It's a hassle, right? So a lot of people use the powdered garlic, which is fine in some cases. But fresh garlic is really good. So what I did is I pureed that in a blender with a little bit of oil. You keep this in your refrigerator for 5 to 7 days. So you do a little bit of work ahead of time, whiz it up, put it in a container. Now you always have fresh garlic for
Has anyone done this before? It's a great tip. And there's powdered garlic that you can get, the dried, but also you know how you have the jars where they mince it up? A lot of times it can be expensive, or they're adding salt and a lot of preservatives to that. So this is it's a smart way. You're still getting the price point, that lower price point of using fresh garlic. Definitely takes a little bit of your effort, but like Chef Tony was saying, you do it once and then you're able to eat 3, 4, 5 or more times from that one effort by having that in your fridge.
And in chefy techniques, this is what we do in the kitchens. We puree, we might buy it bulk already peeled, big 5-pound bags, but we'll throw it in a food processor, a little bit of oil, and we use it for the whole week, okay? I'm sorry? How long will that stay? This will stay 5 to 7 days in your refrigerator. Sodexo and our policy is a little bit shorter, but that's just the way it is. So I'm going to stir this up. Now I'm going to start cutting some vegetables, because I really want to talk about how we're going to stage these different ingredients. So here's an onion that I peeled, okay? I peeled, cut the ends off, peeled it, cut it in half, okay? A lot of layers. And then we're going to get a good dice. Can you guys see me okay? Now, I've been doing this a few times, so, you got to be careful. Just a few, but you can see my fingers, they're nice and curled. And we're going to get good even dices, because the thing about chili or any soup or any stew is you want things to cook evenly, right? So you want all your pieces, whatever you're cutting up, to be even. That way it cooks evenly, okay? So I got some onion going here. We'll do one more.
I used to think, what's the big deal about knife skills? Like, why do I have to learn how to do this and that if I'm just cooking at home for myself and my family? But the more I learned about how it really does make a difference in terms of cooking time, so it all cooks evenly, that's just one of those things that restaurants are doing all the time for us that leads us to think, man, that was so good. Why doesn't it taste as good when I make it at home? This is one of those tips that can really make a difference.
Well, people don't understand that even knife skills have a lot to do with cooking healthy. Because if you cut, I know, you're looking at me like, what's he talking about? So you cut uneven portions of vegetables, you may have to add more oil to get those things cooked. So I got my turkey going. I'm going to refer to my recipe over here because what I not only did I stage, I mise en place. Remember that word? I mise en place everything. Yep. Sure. You could freeze it. Yeah, not a problem.
So freezing that garlic that he made, the garlic puree?
You could freeze it for sure. You know, a lot of people I've seen put them in little ice cube trays. Boom, boom, boom. And then you got you can pop them out as you need them. Okay? So,
does anyone do that with other herbs? I know some people do that. Yeah, great. Great. Yeah, using the ice cube trays. Yeah, great.
All right, now, everybody always has troubles. You know, this is a hard vegetable. So you see what I did here is I took a little piece off, because look at this. That's dangerous, right? So I took a little piece off of now it's not sliding around. Now I want to cut nice, what I call planks, even planks. I'm going to stack these up. You see how nice and even these are. That's very important. And again, I'm going to talk about staging. So different vegetables take different amount of times to cook. So your recipe will indicate what to put in first. So I'm going to put in my seasoning blend. Why do I put in my seasoning blend? And I know I measured this. I need half of this to make my for my chili. So I'm going to put in half of that. One of the reasons I put it in now is because there's a little bit of fat in here from that olive oil, right? When you add your spices to fat, or a little bit of fat in the olive oil, what they call blooms the spices. So there's natural spices, or there's natural oils in the spices and herbs. It just brings out the flavor a lot more. Adding your spices to just a pot of boiling chili, liquid, just doesn't do it. So you want to add your spices into there. I have to repeat, I can't hear.
So the question is about how when you're cooking turkey meat, isn't there a lot of water that's coming out just right, that's kind of draining out right away when you first put the turkey in the pan, right? And are you saying what happens with that water compared to the oil that you're trying to bloom the spices in?
You see that? You see any water in there? Right? So the key is to having a nice hot pan, okay? Because you got to understand, I'm going to get a little technical here. Water boils at 212 degrees. When you want to brown meat, you need the pot at 350 degrees. So as soon as you see water coming out of the meat, you know your pot's not hot enough. Because you'll never get that water above 212 degrees. It's impossible. It just evaporates. So you're not going to get any browning effect until all that water evaporates. And I did that with a hot pan. As you can see in there, there's no water. It's just a little bit of oil from my olive oil. So I don't know if you can smell that already. Can you smell that? Oh my. All right, let's cut up these vegetables. So again, I cut a little. Watch me cut myself. I haven't cut myself in years.
No, don't say that.
Again, it's important to get nice, even cuts. So as I'm doing this, so I added my spices, right? I can smell it. You know, being a chef, what other occupation do you use all 5 senses? Right? I don't know who does. Now I'm going to add my tomato paste. Why do I want to add my tomato paste now? Because again, I want to brown it. I want to get a little color on my tomato paste from that oil down there. That adds a lot of flavor. Again, I just don't want to add my tomato paste to liquid. So at this point, my meat is cooked. Where's this go? Over here. Now I have a fresh spoon, okay? Everything's cooked. So I want to get that tomato paste incorporated into my turkey, and you can see how I'm vigorously stirring it to get that incorporated. Can you see it? Sort of? And you can see on the bottom, you see how there's some sticky stuff on the bottom? That's what you're looking for. So now we're going to add our, what's next? Who's looking at the recipe? So I added my tomato paste. I'm going to add my onions and my carrots. Now, I didn't start any of this cooking prior to you guys coming. So I just want to show you that this chili can be made in the amount of time that this class is. So, yeah. So I'm going to add my onions, my carrots. And again, I don't want to just dump everything in here. I want to saute these for a little bit. That gives me some time to cut up my other vegetables here. The one thing I never do is leave that in the pot. You don't want to do that.
And those ingredients like tomato paste, like the low sodium or unsalted broth, those are really nice, flavorful ingredients that are not necessarily adding, if you're careful with the tomato paste and you choose the no salt added or low sodium variety, those are adding real depth of flavor without relying on a lot of added salt and without adding a lot of fat to the recipe either. So the tomato paste and and the low sodium broth are usually going to be lower fat ingredients. So especially if you're trying to watch your added fat or added saturated fat or cholesterol intake related to heart health, they can be, again, they're nice flavorful ingredients. I know in some of these classes before we've used the tomato paste, we've maybe thinned out a little bit of the tomato paste with some low sodium broth and then used that to roast a tray of vegetables in, and that can give a lot of flavor without needing to add a ton of salt to a tray of vegetables.
So now I'm cutting these peppers, and I hate waste. I don't know about you guys, but I hate wasting food. And I see a lot of times people throwing this stuff away. Look, yeah, you're going to throw that away, right? It'd be great if we could compost it. And by the way, we compost our food down at UH, main campus, and some other places. I know it's not widely known, but we do. We compost food because we care about the environment. But I'm going to use all this. So you can see this is all that's wasted. And that's just a little bit of seed, some stem, no big deal.
How did you do the garlic again?
I dumped the garlic, peeled garlic, into a blender, and I covered it with a little bit of oil, and I whizzed it up.
So it's just taking raw garlic.
That's it.
Right? It was just peeled. We'll have to do that part in front of you next time, because clearly, I know, it's a great tip. It's a great tip.
So you can see I'm getting nice even pieces.
Now, the more vegetables we add to this dish, the more fiber we're getting. We're squeezing more and more fiber into our meal, which is great. Fiber is one of those nutrients that none of us get enough of. We could all stand to get more fiber. And where do you get fiber? You get fiber from foods. Really, you can think of it, an easy rule I like to think of it as, you get fiber from foods that come from plants. So that can be fruits and vegetables and grains and nuts and seeds. All of those foods are going to have fiber. Other foods like the turkey, beans, I forgot. Beans are a great source of fiber. Great source of fiber. Other foods like the turkey, like eggs, chicken, and fish, they're all good too, and you get really good stuff from those too. But that's why we want a balance of everything. You're getting fiber from the other stuff, from all those more plant-based foods. Yeah, and in particular, the vegetables and the beans that we've got in today's recipe, there's different kinds of fiber. It can get complicated, but one type of fiber is called soluble fiber. And you might have heard about that kind of fiber before because it's really helpful for our heart health. So the more soluble fiber you can get from foods like beans and vegetables, that's known to help lower your cholesterol levels. Yeah.
Now I'm going to add my garlic, which I'm not going to really measure, but got to have a lot of garlic. I'm going to add my tomatoes, Now we can start dumping some stuff in. Now I'm going to add my vegetable stock. I want to stir that and get that together. Bring this up to a simmer. Next,
Now,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
What if it says, we talked about if it says low sodium on a box of chicken stock or on a can. What if it says reduced sodium? It's just lower? You got it. All it means when they say reduced sodium is, hey, this manufacturer added less sodium to it than this recipe has less sodium than it used to have. But how much sodium did it used to have? I have no idea from looking at this package. It's unfortunate. So some reduced sodium foods, like some packages that say reduced sodium, will be low in sodium and will be good. Some of them really will not be, and they'll still have tons of added sodium. So it's tough. Unfortunately, it does take some extra time. If you say reduced sodium, you can't trust it just from that. You really got to turn it over and look for yourself. And again, remember you're looking for either per serving on the nutrition facts label, you're looking for either 140 milligrams or less per serving, or you're looking for about 5, maybe 8% when you look at those percentages on the right that are talking about the daily value percentages.
Now, I followed this recipe, but obviously it's a bigger batch. But I want you to see how much vegetables I put in here compared to the meat. So I would say, I'd see a lot of chilies out there that are mostly meat. This would probably be 60-40, 60 vegetable, 40% meat. I think that's a big key. And some of the things that we do wrong as a society is that we just eat too much meat. I'm one to talk, right? But it's true. I can tell you where I go wrong too, but we probably eat too much meat, right? So reducing the amount of meat is going to be healthy for you no matter what type of meat it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. For most people, vast majority of people are going to feel a lot better by playing with those amounts, by upping the plant-based parts of their diet and reducing the meat in their diet. A lot of people just feel better, even if they are not, aside from going to the doctor and seeing any difference in their blood work or in any chronic conditions they may have.
The other thing I say about this chili is it's very allergen-free. I hear people say, I'm allergic to onions. They just don't like onions. But for the most part, there's no wheat in here. There's no shellfish. There's no peanuts.
Some people have a real sensitivity to onions and garlic. I'm just going to say.
Okay.
I know I work with them. But I hear you.
Yeah. So allergen-free, very good.
Very little of the other stuff.
What else? There's no wheat. There's no gluten. There's no soy.
Yeah.
There's no shellfish, seafood.
There's no eggs.
Most anybody can eat this, right? So I'm going to let this simmer, and that's a key. A lot of people say, oh, you're going to let chili simmer all day or all this. It's probably going to be good the next day, if not a little bit better, but it's going to be pretty good today too. So you want to start doing the hands-on a little bit? Who has any questions about this dish? While this simmers, we're going to do the hands-on, and then we're going to let you taste it. Go ahead.
So if you want to go completely meat-free and you don't want to use the crumbs, should you just toss out another can of beans, give it more value?
So, what would be really good in here is some sort of...
and the question was really, what would you do if you would want to replace the meat or the meatless crumbles in the recipe with something else? How would you get the same kind of bulk and texture, right?
Yeah, so obviously protein has a different texture and flavor than other things, but more vegetables, more types of beans. We're doing a chili cook-off March 26th. If anybody wants to come down at main campus, down at UH. We got a bunch of UH chefs. The reason I bring that up is because I give everybody all these ingredients, and one person is doing a vegan chili, and he's got a lot of beans in there. He's got a lot of vegetables. He's got butternut squash. He's got acorn squash. So there's a lot of different things you could put in there to make it give you that body, right?
A couple other tips I would say, some people will do like a quinoa, which is technically a seed, but you think of it a lot in the grains, like as a counterpart to rice or something like that. Quinoa can be, has a decent amount of protein for a grain like that, so some people will do that. There's also textured vegetable protein, or TVP, and that's a more processed version of soy. But it's a low-fat food that if you're trying to get a lot of protein, it can really simulate, because it essentially does look like meatless crumbles that you rehydrate. I know they have it here. that can be another option to try to really simulate, to give this a similar texture.
That's it. The other thing I'll say about getting more body is, you know, the chili's up to here. Maybe take a quarter of it, and if it's all vegetables, buzz it up in a blender or a food processor, whiz it up, and then put that back in, even with your beans and stuff, and that'll give it a lot more. I wouldn't do that with meat, just because, you know, but for a vegetarian chili, it'd be no problem. Even with a meat chili, you could take these beans with a little bit of the vegetable stock, puree them up, add it in there, and it's going to make it nice and thick and hearty. You'll notice this is going to be, it'll be chili-like. It'll probably be a little thinner than a normal chili, but you could definitely do that. The other thing I didn't mention is all the different ingredients you could add in there. If you don't like pinto and northern beans, add black beans, add kidney beans, chickpeas. If you don't like bell peppers, add zucchini, add squash. I mean, you know, a recipe is not like baking. It's more of just a blueprint for you to, you know, add a little different things. Now, obviously, you're not going to add some crazy stuff, but for the most part, all the vegetables are pretty interchangeable, and I don't really think it's going to affect the health sodium level for sure of nothing. So, yeah, feel free to take that recipe and play with it. The onions I just cut up, I have some fat-free or low-fat sour cream that we're going to add on top for you guys. Of course, but you could garnish this with endless array of goodies. So we're going to do that. We're going to let this already coming up to a simmer. We're going to let this simmer for about the time that you guys do your little hands-on spice blend, and we'll be ready to eat. So here's the turkey, heart healthy chili recipe that we just made. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time at the UH Dave's Teaching Kitchen.